Knicks fans absolutely took over the city of Cleveland and got to watch their team demolish the Cavs. The New York Knicks are headed to the NBA Finals at Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And we're used to this. This year, every time the Knicks have had a chance to clinch a series, they haven't just clinched it. They've slapped the opponent around disrespectfully and reminded them who's boss, which is exactly what they did last night to Cleveland. If you thought Cleveland was going to give a big puncher's chance, try and fight their way back into this series, update, ... They did not. The Knicks absolutely ran them out of the building from the outset all the way to the final buzzer. Caroline, this Knicks team is not just good. They look like a juggernaut right now.
They look like they're playing the best basketball in the NBA. And if you would have told me a month ago, maybe a month and some change, hey, would you be surprised if the Knicks punched their ticket to the NBA Finals after sweeping in the semifinals and sweeping in the Eastern Conference Finals and winning all of those games in wildly dramatic fashion? Not dramatic fashion in what unraveled on the court. No. Dramatic fashion in just the final score. And 40-plus point victories, 30-plus point victories. I would say, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Not because I didn't believe in the Knicks, but because I didn't think the level of dominance that we are seeing from the New York Knicks right now was even within the realm of possibility. Especially because there was just a little shred of a possibility in my mind of the Knicks melting down and doing what they have done over the last couple of years in the postseason. And that is just totally tucking their tail between their legs and melting down. But not this Knicks team. So if you would have told me 2 days ago, would you be surprised if this happened? I would have said absolutely not, which is why I'm not surprised by a 30-plus point victory in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, because that's exactly what the Knicks have been doing over the last 9 games. Game 6 against the Hawks. They're like, not anymore. We're done with this. We were already embarrassed enough and losing 2 games to this team. We're going to close this out and we're going to absolutely positively clobber them. And they did. Against the Sixers, we are going to, we don't even belong in the same stratosphere, the same zip code as this team. And they proved that on the court in the same thing with a plucky Cleveland Cavaliers team that pushed all of their chips into the middle at the trade deadline and trading for James Harden. This Cavs team that I didn't give a punching chance on the road at Detroit in Game 7, but they did it and they continued to prove me wrong. And the Knicks didn't even break a sweat in sweeping them. So I am not surprised, Fitzy. Even in a world where I probably should be surprised from a game that we saw last night from the Knicks, sheer and utter dominance that we saw from the Knicks, I'm not. Because this is just who this Knicks team is today. I don't care who they were in February. This is who they are right now.
And I don't disagree. Look, I think we have to accept the fact that the Knicks today are not defined by inconsistency the way the Knicks were during their regular season. And in fact, this 10-game stretch entering Game 4 was historic. Now, they have a plus 262 total margin of victory. That's the best by any team over an 11-game span, regular season or postseason ever. Again, plus 262. And that margin of victory is important because that's part of why we're all sitting here saying, my God, just how good are the Knicks? But, and there is a but, Caroline, I'm going to be consistent in the way we cover the Knicks versus the way we cover every other dominant team that beats up on cupcakes. And by that, I mean, you and I cover a lot of college football. How often do we see a team get into the college football playoff and we say, okay, they're in the playoff, but who have they really played along the way, right? Like we have to analyze that as part of the conversation. In fact, this year for the Super Bowl, so much of the conversation going into the Super Bowl was as good as the Patriots are, boy, did they play a soft schedule. I want to remind the world, and I know it sounds like I'm being a Knicks hater. I'm not. This run is wild. It's impressive. But this run was against the Hawks, who suck, and against the 76ers, who at best, on their best day, are okay, and against the Cavs team that I think anybody remaining in the playoffs would have done exactly this too. If I just take my whole math mind and sit there and say, well, what if San Antonio played these same teams along the way? What if OKC played these same teams along the way? We get the same level of drubbing, maybe even more. So as impressive as the Knicks have been, and they have been impressive, as wild as this margin of victory is, and it is wild, as great as they have looked, I do think we have to understand at some point their path through the East has been like an actual athlete taking on a fat kid in dodgeball. Like at some point, the ass kicking has something to do with the teams that they've played. I think the Knicks have been incredibly impressive. I still don't look at the Knicks and say, yep, they're my favorite to win it all, because along the way through this process, they really haven't played anybody that's tested them. Statement to the Knicks, but also reason that I have caution before I'd suddenly take this to the next level.
I do think that's fair. And to any Knicks fan that pushes back to that and says, well, they can't control who they play in the playoffs, just because they can't control it doesn't mean it's not part of the narrative and at least an important part of the story when we're talking about the 2026 Knicks postseason. But also, I don't know if San Antonio could have mounted a 22-point comeback against the Cavs in game one. Maybe. Sure, sure they could. If I had to pick who's going to win in a 7-game series, the Spurs or the Cavs, I'm taking the Spurs, and I'm feeling pretty good about that bet. But to say that the Knicks haven't been tested, I don't think is necessarily fair to what we have seen. And I think that game one comeback is the biggest reason for that. Because it takes a lot of resilience, it takes a lot of trust, and I think it takes a lot of selflessness to see the different ways that we've seen the Knicks win basketball games in the postseason, and specifically in this series. In game one, I took a shower and got ready for bed at halftime because I was like, okay, Cleveland won this game. Turned it back on in the fourth quarter, and I thought, oh my God, we have a basketball game now. How in the world did this happen? I blinked, and all of a sudden, Jalen Brunson puts a Superman cape on and willed the Knicks to victory. And then the next game, we saw it unfold in a different way. Josh Hart goes off. Josh Hart is the Knicks' fifth scoring option, and he absolutely went off for a career-high postseason stat line. So I hear you, and just on paper, the Hawks, the Sixers, the Cavs, not necessarily the same kind of gauntlet that you have to get through in the West. None of those teams even hold a candle to both the Spurs and the Thunder. So I do understand that. But I do think while your opponent is important, the way that you play against your opponents is also a wildly important part of this story. And no, the Knicks can't control who's on their schedule in the postseason. All they can do is how they play and how they beat them. What more could you ask from this team with the opponents that they did play in the postseason? What more do you need to see from the Knicks to say, yes, they are a legitimate championship contender?
But isn't that the exact same thing? Again, I'm just being consistent here. You're right. There's nothing more that the Knicks could have done. I look at that very first half that you talked about when you said, what happened? How did we get this game? I was looking at more like, what happened? How did we get this game from? How the hell did you let Cleveland even get up by 22, right? Like, to me, and look, I've been consistent on this all the way before the playoffs. For some people that said the East playoffs are going to be electric, I said I don't really like most of these teams. Like, I just, it's, to your point, what more could the Knicks have done is a fair pushback. But I would say that this is why consistency matters and how we cover every sport. Because certainly the Patriots looked a certain kind of way through the course of the regular season. And then as we got closer and closer to the Super Bowl, it was like, well, wait a minute. Just because the Patriots are in this conversation doesn't mean the Patriots are actually in this conversation. Who they play has to matter. Frankly, I think Denver or Minnesota, either one would have beaten every one of the teams that the Knicks have beaten in the playoffs so far. So and Denver and Minnesota aren't even in part of this conversation. So no, there's nothing more than Knicks could have done. And I think this is where two things can be true. Knicks fans are going to come back and say, and I'm being a Knicks hater. I'm not. I think this run is incredible. I think this run is electric. I think it's fun to watch. My God, I have Madison Square Garden as part of my tattoo on my right arm. There's nothing but love for what this environment is going to be like for the NBA Finals. It's great. But when we get into those finals and we see how good whichever team comes out of the West is, right now, the best shot that the Knicks have at truly winning a championship is relying on the fact that they, by the time the finals have started, will have only played 4 games in 23 days. They're going to be rested. If your argument is, man, maybe we can steal these finals because the other side's going to be tired and banged up, that tells you how most people actually see the difference between where the Knicks are and where OKC and San Antonio are. They're going to be in the finals together, whichever team comes out of the West. That doesn't mean that they got to the table anyway the same way. It's not the Knicks' fault that they haven't played anybody, Caroline, but that doesn't change my analysis of the fact that they haven't played anybody.
And to your point, look, I still think whoever's coming out of the West should be favored in the NBA Finals. I would put money on that bet and feel pretty good about it. But we both said several times over, a couple of weeks ago, whoever wins the Western Conference Finals is probably winning an NBA championship. Whoever makes it out of that side, we've been saying that actually since like January. Whoever makes it out of the West
Yeah.
is winning a championship. I think that if you are still so steadfast in that belief, if your mind is closed and you've already made up your mind that whoever comes out of the West is winning a championship, I don't think you're paying attention. While I do still think that whoever comes out of the West will win a championship, while I do think that whoever comes out of the West should be favored in the NBA Finals, to think that there's not even a chance, a sliver, a thought in your mind that this Knicks team, who has gone on a historic run in the postseason, 11 straight wins in the NBA postseason, if you don't even open up your mind the teeniest, tiniest bit to the idea that the Knicks might just be a wagon and that there's no chance that they can win a championship, you haven't been watching this Knicks team. Sure, yeah, they've had a rinky-dink path on the way to the NBA Finals. I understand that. I hear that. But you bring up the New England Patriots. When did the New England Patriots ever clobber anybody in the NFL playoffs? Anybody. When did the Patriots ever have a win as dominant as what we've seen 4 times over now from the Knicks against the Cavs? None. There was always something that you could pick apart. Whether you were playing, a Bo Nixless Denver team in the snow, or you're playing CJ Stroud, who was essentially a double agent throwing 4 picks in a playoff game, or you're playing the Chargers, who didn't have an offensive line. Like, there were always things that you could pick apart from the Patriots' path to the Super Bowl, and nobody ever felt confident about any sort of domination or dominant performance that you saw from the Patriots. This is a different story. Even
But
though it's lighter opponents, it's domination against lighter opponents.
but we see domination against lighter opponents in college football all the time. Again, a sport you and I both cover a ton of. We see it all the time. And what happens when we get to the playoffs? Suddenly it looks much different, right? Like when you get to the
What about
actual meat of
Miami?
it,
Miami
I
didn't
mean,
play anybody. Miami lost to Louisville on a Friday night, and then Miami turned around and beat Ohio State and beat Ole Miss, and all of a sudden we were like, wait, Miami, a team that we didn't even think deserved to be in the playoffs. Remember, they were very controversially even in the college football playoff, and they punched their ticket to the national championship game.
yeah, but what about Notre Dame a couple of years ago that runs through everybody and then they get to an actual real opponent and they get murdered in the championship game, right? Like, I mean, that's there are
They
we
beat
can what
Georgia in
about
the CFP.
I mean, but when they got to the best team, when they got to the actual like real meat of it, they got their asses kicked, right? Like this is whoever wins out of the West is going to be far more equivalent to the best of the best of the best than just a pretty good college football playoff team. So I hear you that hey, there are examples where teams can come out and shock everybody, but the 2 things that I think make that really difficult is one, I don't think we should sleep on how good even though they've been injured and even though they're going to be tired, how good both teams are from the West. The second thing is it's a 7-game series. And in a 7-game series, cream rises. So just like over the course of 7 games, I believe that the Knicks were able to show that they're going to be able to show that they were far better than any of the teams that they played so far, even if they've been tested. A 7-game series certainly gives that same opportunity. So I hear you. I'm not disrespecting the Knicks. I just have no respect for who the Knicks beat to get here. So I don't know why anything's changed in my mind because I don't think the Knicks beat anybody to get to where they are. As impressive as it looked, again, this is like an actual athlete taking on a non-athlete and then having to really face a real team. The Atlanta sucks. 76ers suck. The Cavs suck. None of those teams were a real opponent to me.
Fitz has seen a historic run in the playoffs with plenty of opportunities to slip up, and they didn't, and he's still not buying it. You are a harsh critic, my friend. But you bring up how banged up any of these teams on the West are going to be. I mean, I think the series is going to 7. I hope this series is going to 7. I think we as basketball fans deserve a 7-game series in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think that's nothing. Like, I think they're going to be banged up. I think that it's going to be an emotionally draining series, physically, mentally draining series. We've already seen an injury report the length of a Harry Potter novel on both for both of these teams. And sure, if the Knicks win a championship because either side doesn't have 3 of their starting 5, sure, maybe we can poke a hole in the, quote unquote legitimacy of that championship. Do we look at it with an asterisk or not? But I don't think that's nothing. I don't think it's nothing that the Knicks have now played 8 games across 2 series, and in the West, they're going to be beating each other up, and they could be limping in the NBA Finals.
And I agree with you, but also, you know what helps get you up when you're just absolutely dog tired and you don't have it in you? Madison Square Garden. You walk into the Garden, and whatever version you like, if you have no gas in the tank, playing an NBA Finals game in Madison Square Garden will be juiced for both sides. I still believe in the West. I trust in the West. Plenty more to break down on this, obviously, as we will keep you caught up on all of it. Speaking of the West, we'll figure it out. Spurs-Thunder headed to a pivotal Game 5 coming up tonight. We'll tell you what to expect.
Are there any teams that come to mind, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Sacramento, or anybody else that you think has good incentive to try to move up in the draft?
If there was a team that I was looking at that had an asset, it's Milwaukee at 10 that might use Giannis to, for example, maybe try to get that 5th pick from the Clippers. That's the only team that I'm looking at right now that I say, okay, I think they've got the juice.
This is a team that is also doing it without some signature players in their rotation. Hunter Green, we have not seen him, but what Terry Francona and his staff are putting together right now, Sal Stewart is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Ellie De La Cruz is an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I think that the Cincinnati Reds are a team that has some staying power in what is a very interesting and potentially compelling National League Central.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadari Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back 1 position.
Right across the street from where the Giants and the Jets play, we've got professional football indoor. The run up and the left-footed kick is on the ground and picked up by an up man for the Rattlers. It's Ronnie Brown. Brown out across midfield and a great run down the boards to the end zone. Touchdown, Brown. What a start in the IFL Cup. Huge high hop, and he just absolutely had a nose for the end zone down the wall.
The Spurs held the Thunder to 82 points, the fewest they've scored in the regular season or playoffs since December 2nd of 2021, in a huge win that ties the series to 2 games apiece. And now all of a sudden has everybody thinking that San Antonio has figured OKC out. So, Caroline, have they rounded into form? Have they found the cheat code against the Thunder headed into Game 5?
Yes and no. And I don't know what's confusing about that answer. Yes, in that I think San Antonio cracked a certain code of making the perfect and adjustments that they needed to make from Game 3 to Game 4. You're not going to win a single game, nor are you going to win a series whenever a team makes 45% of their threes and 17 3-pointers made in Game 3. So what did San Antonio do? Say, you are not going to beat us from beyond the arc. Held them to just 18% in Game 4. I mean, San Antonio kept OKC's shooting in general in check in Game 4. So I think they found the right adjustments. They cracked the code from Game 3 to Game 4. But why I'm not willing to fully go, San Antonio found the secret sauce that nobody else in the NBA was willing to find, is because I fully expect Oklahoma City to make those same adjustments, to respond to the defense that San Antonio showed them in Game 4. So I don't think that San Antonio has all of a sudden just now signed, sealed, delivered this series, has completely locked it up after what we saw from them in Game 4. But I do think what we have seen is that San Antonio can do something that not many, if not any other team in the NBA has been able to do over this entire season, if not going back all the way to next season, and that is hold Oklahoma City's offense in check.
Well, the hard part for me about the concept that they've figured anything out is that concept that they figured anything out implies that suddenly something could just be figured out, Caroline. Like at the end of the day, I've seen this a lot with the turnovers where people are saying, okay, the San Antonio figured out OKC because they stopped the turnovers. Well, to that, I would turn around and say, do you think we didn't know that turnovers were part of this? Do you think that suddenly San Antonio sat there after being down 2-1 in the series and like, you know what we need to do? Stop turning the basketball over. Oh, yeah, man, I hadn't thought of that. Good idea. Turnovers should really be stopped. Like, sometimes it's just a bad game. And for me, the concept that you figured out how to stop turning the basketball over is fool's gold. So was this that they figured out a better way to protect the basketball, or was it just one of those nights? Was it a night where Oklahoma City was really off, or was it a night where San Antonio had it figured out? I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm anxious to see Game 5, because did they figure out a better way to protect the basketball, or was it just a night where suddenly they were a little on fire? Did they figure out a better way to defend OKC, especially from the outside shooting, or was it just a night where OKC was wildly cold? I don't know the answer to that. So I'm excited for Game 5 to give us some indication of that answer, Caroline, because right now I think it's a little bit too far of a reaction for so many of us that have been watching the series to turn around and say, oh, San Antonio's figured it out.
Well, of course we overreact to one game. That's what we do, Fitzy. That's what is so great about the NBA postseason is we see one game and one outcome and all of a sudden think that that's what we're going to see moving forward. But if you believe that, if you see that after game 4 and think all of a sudden San Antonio has cracked the code, again, you have not been paying attention to this series. It has been so back and forth, and I will give credit to both of these head coaches for making masterful adjustments from game to game. But I expect OKC to make those same adjustments. You bring up the turnovers. I mean, San Antonio still turned the ball over 12 times. That is an improvement from the 19 and 20, maybe that we've seen at the beginning of this series. But turning the ball over 12 times is still a recipe to lose against a team in Oklahoma City that feels as perfect and as flawless and as, going off without a hitch as they have been really for the better part of the last 2 years. I think it showed a lot that San Antonio still turned the ball over 12 times, albeit a better clip than they have had in recent games. But still turning the ball over 12 times and still finding a way to not just win, but dominate that game. I mean, 82 points in game 4 is the second lowest point total all season long from Oklahoma City. I can't call that a fluke. I can't say that that's just luck on the end of San Antonio, or if that's just a bad night for OKC. Because even a bad night for OKC is better than a lot of other teams in the NBA. So I don't think it's fluky. I don't think that was just an off night. I don't think it was just a cold night. I think we have to give credit to San Antonio for just how dominant they were in that game. But still, again, to your point, I am not going to all of a sudden make massive assumptions and say that this is the San Antonio team that we're going to see moving forward and the San Antonio team that we're going to see going into game 5. Because these two teams are far too good for this series to feel like it's already over as early as it is in the series.
I mean, again, and this is where I think we can all overreact so much. Like the Thunder, 123-108, they get the win just a couple of days ago. On Friday, they win 123-108. Like that was a big, convincing win. And everybody's like, yep, OKC figured it out. I think the back and forth of this series is what's making it interesting. And how OKC reacts to the injuries is going to be a huge part of what we see moving forward, right? Because we have to look at this, Caroline, and wonder where the breaking point is for Oklahoma City. When you're facing as many injuries in the backcourt as they continue to face, when you're as decimated as they are, I do wonder when there's a breaking point, when they can no longer just overcome that. And it's really easy for me to want to go there. But you know this. I think if anything that I've learned about myself through these playoffs that we're covering, it's that I hesitate to really shift my opinion until we've seen enough to make it shiftable. And yes, I take the risk after the last game that makes me look like a fool because, frankly, my God, what we just saw from San Antonio was dominance. But again, just 48 hours before that, what we saw was dominance, but it was dominance of San Antonio. So what do we do with the series where one night Oklahoma City is dominating and the next night Oklahoma City is being dominated?
I think that's just the makings of a 7-game series. I think when we see these ebbs and these flows and these peaks and these valleys, even when we can see the road team dominate or vice versa, that there's not one thing that you can point to, at least I don't think, as an explanation for why we're seeing, either San Antonio get the highest of the highs and then seeing the lowest of the lows and vice versa. I think it's just these are two really good basketball teams who are, to your point, and to the tweet that we just saw from Tom, we haven't seen Oklahoma City's top 3 players play San Antonio's top 3 players in the series. We're going into game 5. Like, that is jarring and that is astonishing. So I think it's two really great teams, two of the best players on the planet in SGA and Victor Wembanyama, two teams that are adjusting to life without some of their top players, or adjusting to he's in the lineup, he's out of the lineup, he's banged up, he's not banged up, he's available, he's not available. Because I don't care if you're Victor Wembanyama, and I don't care if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, although Oklahoma City has been able to weather the injury storm far better than any other team in the league is even capable of all season long. To your point, there's a breaking point at some point. So both of these teams are adjusting to rotating starting lineups, rotating injuries, getting bitten by the injury bug. These home environments making a difference, officiating making a difference. I just think that the peaks and the valleys and the hot and the colds that we've seen from this series are just the makings, one, of a 7-game series, and the makings of two really good basketball teams that are both deserving of competing for a championship.
Which only continues to be the makings of why Knicks fans are so excited right now, because the longer this series goes and the more everybody's beat up, the more you have to wonder what that's going to mean for the Knicks. I do say, for all the things that I've said that have been tough about the Knicks, let's be clear. The basketball gods have shined on New York and said, hey, if you're going to win a chip, we're going to give you the best possible opportunity to win it that you can. The basketball gods seem to be shining on New York. Plenty more to come in. But in the meantime, coming up next, Brian Berger, Sports Business Radio Insider, going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on everything going across from the NBA and the rest of the sports landscape coming up next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught! Touchdown, New Mexico. Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch. There's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet. But a great play, though, for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much. And I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that. And I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time, when it's all said and done, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's that like for you as a weapon to see different coaches come in and figure out how to best utilize those weapons? What's that been like for you?
It's been great, just working for guys like that now under Matt. They're just guys that you want to play for. You get to see how all of these great minds think. It's allowing me to learn. It's keeping me on my toes and allowing me to just develop as a football player mentally.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
The most watched NBA playoffs in 29 years. And that love is likely to continue. If you could sit there and you could say to Adam Silver in the NBA, boy, what do you think of a possible finals matchup? And it includes, the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. It just feels like that is a win. Brian Berger joins us now. Great to have Brian back and doing great work, always covering sports media business. Brian, tell me I'm wrong, but the minute I thought Madison Square Garden NBA finals, it feels like this is the sort of moment that the league salivates for.
It's the Mecca, right? That's what they call Madison Square Garden. This is such a win for the NBA, such a win for the Knicks. Someone already paid $279,000 for 2 courtside seats to Game 3. The least expensive get-in ticket for Game 3, $3,600. And Game 6 is $5,600. So this is going to set all kinds of records for NBA Finals tickets prices. I think those ratings that you just showed are only going to increase. I do think if Wemby gets in, you've got the alien against the Knicks. That is the best case scenario for the NBA.
And those are ticket prices that Tom Dundon would never be willing to pay, the owner of the Portland Trailblazers. Brian, you live in Portland, and Tom Dundon has been in the headlines recently for, laying off 70 employees, cutting costs, it feels like, at any chance he possibly can. From your perspective, the owner's cost-cutting measures, what does that do for a team? What does that do for the perception of the team? And what does that do for a fan base?
Yeah, he's been like a bull in a china shop so far. He's come in and just cut costs. He didn't allow T-shirts. I look at teams like the Knicks and the Spurs, and you see all the former players sitting courtside and how the teams have embraced the former players. He got rid of a lot of the people that had connections to the former players last week when they laid off 70 people. He's cutting hotel costs. He's just running this kind of like he runs the Carolina Hurricanes, his NHL team. And you can't run an NHL team like you run an NBA team. I think there's still changes to come. I think obviously we're probably going to have a different coach than Thiago Splitter. He's already talked about paying that coach as one of the lowest paid coaches in the NBA. You might have a new GM and you might have a team president. So it's not odd for a new owner to bring in their own people, but he's really cut deep with these cuts. And it seems like he's wiping away that connection to the past that you see with the Spurs and the Knicks. And that's been really hard for people here in Portland.
You just said you can't run an NBA team like you run an NHL team. That being said, Dundon's Carolina Hurricanes, they could be headed to the Stanley Cup final. We're in a world where Bill Foley, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, has submitted a bid to become the owner of the NBA team in Las Vegas. Why can't you run an NBA team the same way you run an NHL team?
It's more expensive. It's just more expensive to run an NBA team. And I think there have always been more luxuries with an NBA team. You're staying at the nicer hotels. You're riding the private planes. You're taking the nice buses. It's just different than how you run an NHL team. And I'm sorry, not that many people knew who Tom Dundon was before he became the governor of the Portland Trailblazers. When you're an NHL owner, you're much more behind the scenes. When you're an NBA or an NFL or even a Major League Baseball owner, you're much more in the headlines. You're scrutinized. You're looked at under the microscope. And I don't think Dundon realized by being the governor of the Trailblazers how much he'd be under the microscope. And he thought by making these changes to the Trailblazers, they would go unnoticed like when he was in Carolina with the Hurricanes. And it's not the same. NBA is different than the NHL.
Is the Trailblazers' long-term future in Portland?
Boy, I would say, if I had to say, I think he's going to do everything in his power to move them. And it breaks my heart to say that because I used to work for the Trailblazers. I live in Portland, but this seems to be Sonics 2.0. And I think he's going to say all the right things. And at the end of the day, he's going to come with a pretty cutthroat deal for the state and the city. And when they don't make that deal, I think he's going to use that as his excuse to move the team. And the way it works with at least NBA Board of Governors is when you sit around that table, other owners are not going to stop you from doing what you want to do, like relocating, because if they want to do something in the future, they don't want you to vote against them. So they are very unlikely to vote against him to move. By the way, if he does relocate, there's a relocation fee attached to that. So all the other teams in the NBA would make money from Dundon relocating to a Nashville, a San Diego, someplace like that.
If you were to relocate, would that be separate of the announcement already that they're looking at Las Vegas and Seattle as the next markets?
Yes. I think in Seattle, the Kraken owner, Samantha Holloway, is the leader in the clubhouse there. I would be really surprised. Look, they already have the arena. They have the practice facility. When they built all of that in Seattle for the Kraken, they did it with an NBA team in mind. So I'd be really surprised if she's not the one who winds up with the team. In Las Vegas, Bill Foley, same thing. You could play in the same place, T-Mobile Arena, where the Golden Knights play. He's got some things, but those are totally separate from the Blazers relocating potentially. I hope it doesn't happen, but I think Tom Dundon is going to try and get the best deal that he can get. And if it's not in Oregon, he's going to look elsewhere.
You bring up Nashville and San Diego. Those are two markets that I have heard kind of regurgitated a lot throughout articles and podcasts that I've listened to about the future of the Trailblazers. There are 4 other NBA teams in California. There is an NBA team 3 hours down the road from Nashville in Memphis. So why those cities when it feels like they are already in saturated basketball markets?
It's a very good point. But I think what happens is you've got these cities who want an NBA team. They've got ready-made arenas. And if they find out there's a team that might be willing to relocate, they reach out regardless of the landscape elsewhere. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I have it on pretty good authority that even before Dundon became the official governor of the Trailblazers, he was reaching out to other NBA teams or other markets where he could potentially relocate. And that's a no-no. I think those conversations have calmed down. But it's really going to come down to, can he make a deal with the state of Oregon and the city of Portland to keep the Blazers here? And if those conversations don't go the way he wants, I think he's going to start talking to other cities.
I always say it only takes one city willing, and all of a sudden everything changes. So that's the thing I keep reminding fans when they say this won't keep happening. Something else Sports Business Radio covered on the all-new Yahoo Sports Business Hub, which you should check out. FIFA World Cup, U.S. Soccer, about to have a moment, obviously. A lot of conversation about ticket prices and all these controversies around it. But how do they take advantage of this moment and the attention they're going to have in this country business-wise coming up this summer?
Yeah, David Wright, the chief commercial officer for U.S. Soccer, is going to be joining me on Sports Business Radio soon. But this is the biggest moment in the history of soccer in the United States. We're hosting World Cup on American soil. The U.S. team has been building towards this World Cup for a long time. This was awarded to North America in 2018, if you can believe it or not. They've been trying to build a program to compete with other world powers like Argentina, France, Brazil. And this is their moment. So they've got this brand new state-of-the-art practice facility in Atlanta, the Arthur M. Blank training facility that just opened. It's one of the nicest training facilities in any sport in the world. And they've got all the resources they need. I think also they're going to add more sponsors. They've got Nike on the kits. They've got Volkswagen as a big sponsor. So they're going to only use this moment to add more to their business portfolio. Look, the women's team has been collecting World Cups and Olympic golds for a long time. Now it's time for the men's team to embrace this moment. And all eyes are going to be on the U.S. men's national team in about 3 weeks.
You mentioned how that Nike swoosh will be on the kits. There is a Nike and Adidas rivalry unfolding before our eyes. Why is that important when it comes to the World Cup?
So Adidas is the official sponsor of FIFA World Cup. So the ball will be an Adidas ball. A lot of Adidas shoes. You'll see Adidas on the broadcast. They're the official FIFA World Cup sponsor. But Nike is on the kits of the United States, Brazil, England, and other teams. So it's really going to be a battle for mind share. And executives at Nike and Adidas have been pointing towards this World Cup for a long time as a battleground for soccer. Soccer is the biggest global sport in the world. It's something that all of these companies compete for. And it's going to be Nike versus Adidas. Who stands out the most? Is it the U.S. kits? Is it the ball? Where do you see the Adidas and Nike brands? That's going to be interesting to watch, but they're putting a lot of effort and resources behind this World Cup.
How did that happen? Okay, peek behind the curtain for me. There was a year of my life when the band I was in was on tour with Blake Shelton. Blake had a Pepsi deal. And one thing that had to happen the day before is they went into every amphitheater we played and they took every Coke sign down in that amphitheater. Yeah. Backstage, every Coke bottle was removed because there couldn't even be a possibility of a picture where there was a Coke logo behind Blake because that would be a conflict to his Pepsi deal. How do we end up in a world where we have suddenly an Adidas deal, a Puma deal, a Nike deal, all with these conflicting brands that are all competing with each other in the same event?
Yeah, it's crazy. But the kits and FIFA are totally different sponsorships. So each of the countries make their own kit deal. So you can make a deal with a company other than Adidas, even though they're an additional exclusive sponsor of World Cup and with FIFA. So it is kind of crazy. You've got all these brands. It can be confusing, but they're totally separate deals. But you're right, Jason. I mean, you look at the NCAA tournament. They've got exclusive sponsors. You can't have signage in the building. And it will be very much the same way for World Cup. These host venues have had to strip down sponsors that are typically in there, the signage, and put up FIFA World Cup signage. So it's very strict, but not with the kits and not with the shoes.
So you mentioned how all eyes will be on North America, rightfully so. This is a massive moment for soccer in North America, mostly soccer in the United States. What are your opinions, maybe the opinions of people in the sports business landscape, of how North America and how the United States has approached the World Cup, the logistics, the hype, the advertising, all of those things going in to the main event?
We're going to find out. I mean, it's so weird. I've had Alex Lazary from the New York, New Jersey host committee on, and they will run things very different than Seattle does or LA does. You've got all of these host venues, and they really have to abide by the rules in their state and in their city. So Atlanta is able to charge almost nothing for public transportation. In New York, you're going to pay a lot of money for public transportation. Ticket prices, parking, merchandise, these are all venue by venue. So I would bet the reviews are going to come in and it's going to be like, well, New York was this and Seattle was that and LA was this and Atlanta was that. So, but New York, New Jersey is hosting the championship, the final. So I think they're going to be under the spotlight the most, but it's a big moment. I mean, from security to how the experience is for fans at the venues. There's going to be a ton of events taking place outside of the venues for those people who can't get tickets at bars and restaurants. And, there's going to be a lot of World Cup gatherings for people who come into the United States from other countries, can't get a ticket, but they just want to be part of the environment.
That's it's incredible to follow, and we're going to cover a ton of it. Before we get you out of here, one thing we got to get, especially for Bears fans everywhere, as we talk about stadiums and environments. Chicago, Bears, Indiana, Bears. Where are they going to play? What's coming?
This is like such a crazy story. I mean, can you imagine? So the Chicago Bears have been in Chicago for 105 years. It just doesn't seem right that at some point they would be the Indiana Bears. This is a leverage play, in my opinion. I think the Bears, who it's already going to be weird enough if they move to Arlington Heights, where they have a plot of land and they're not in downtown Chicago, in Soldier Field, where they've been for decades. That's going to be weird enough. If they move to Indiana, that's just going to be bizarre. But I think it's a leverage play for the Bears to get the state of Illinois to play ball on a deal that they want for a new stadium in Arlington Heights, where they own land. And if they don't get it, they're going to say, well, we're going to move to Indiana. Will they really? I don't know. I think it would really hurt their brand if the Chicago Bears become the Indiana Bears. But this is business and it's a leverage play, and we will find out.
Yeah, it is going to be wild. You guys can obviously follow him on Twitter, social media, at SB Radio is how you get to it. Brian, always appreciate your time, your insight. We can talk to you about this all day. Got to have you back soon, my friend. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Great stuff from Brian
Thanks,
Berger.
Brian.
Be sure to check out the Yahoo Sports Media Hub, too, out there doing great work. Coming up, speaking of great work, is Indy on a run that can't be touched in college football? We'll tell you about it.
And the Jets with Darren Mucci as GM feel like they are figuring it out. Now, can Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, stay out of the way and let this thing progress? Is Aaron Glenn actually have the goods as head coach? I don't know that, but I think Geno Smith was a really sound signing, and I really do think, dodging lightning bolts here, the Jets could surprise people this year and be a lot better than the team you've been watching the last 15 years during this historic playoff drought.
How did you feel about his 2025? Do you think the hype is justified? Is he your number one guy right now?
I would feel comfortable putting him as QB1 right now. What I saw from Arch down the stretch, like, I just think that a lot of people stopped watching Arch in October. It was like, this guy's not good. And they moved on.
They did.
And then we got to Florida. And then we got Tennessee. And we moved on and on and on. And he stacked games and he stacked games and he stacked games. I was texting a Southwest scout and I was like, fill in the blank. Arch Manning has the best pocket movement skills since, and he said Joe Burrow.
Should AJ Bonsa be a lock for the number one pick going to the Washington Wizards? What do you think, Chad?
He's been my favorite player to watch really all year. I love what AJ brings to the table and the upside. I think he's got the combination of a can't miss scorer who could just ultimately be, one of the elite top 5 players in the NBA. And I just don't think the Wizards take the risk. To me, he's the clear number one guy.
2nd down and 7, 5 to play. DeLorean launches, far boards, got a man deep in the end zone, caught, touchdown! The Orlando Pirates take a big shot and cash it in.
It was only a matter of time before he had the one-on-one situation, and he got a chance to show off that blazing speed.
Nyquan Murray continues a massive night.
Which head coach would you want, Curt Cignetti or Marcus Freeman? This speaks to just what has happened. We live in a world now, in a college football world, Caroline, where Indiana is one of the key spots in the NFL. Who would have thought? Who would have ever thought 5 years ago we'd be talking about these two guys, Indiana particularly, being the teams to run it? So I'll ask you, you got to pick one. Would you rather have Marcus Freeman or Curt Cignetti?
I'd rather have Curt Cignetti. And I think it's pretty simple. It comes down to who has won a national championship and who hasn't. Well, Curt Cignetti has won a national championship. Marcus Freeman has gotten to one, close but no cigar. And I think the ultimate dividing factor there is that Curt Cignetti has done more with less in a less amount of time. Notre Dame football has every single resource at their disposal. And it really does probably feel like a massive failure that Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship in how many years? I mean, how long has it been since they've been there? They just haven't won one. Then with the resources, with the talent that they attract, that feels like a massive, massive disappointment. Curt Cignetti in year 2 at Indiana, the losingest Power 4 program in the history of college football before he got there. A place that had, if they beat Marshall every once in a while, it was like, woohoo! A place where students didn't even think about going to the college football games. And he won a national championship with the old quarterback from Cal, with a bunch of transfers from JMU. So it's Curt Cignetti, and I love Marcus Freeman. I have a lot of respect for Marcus Freeman. And Marcus Freeman did beat Curt Cignetti head-to-head. I think we should point that out. Marcus Freeman beat Curt Cignetti in the college football playoff in 2024. But Marcus Freeman has done something that Curt Cignetti has never done. That's lose to Northern Illinois. That's lose to Marshall. That's lose to teams that he really has no business losing to. When Curt Cignetti has only ever lost to Ohio State and Notre Dame.
When you think about the conversation around Cignetti, I think where Indiana came from is such a huge part of this. Because what we say about Marcus Freeman is, he's finally brought Notre Dame back to the promised land that they deserve to be part of. Just a reminder, the 5 seasons leading up to Marcus Freeman taking over full-time, that Notre Dame team went 10-3, 12-1, 11-2, 10-2, 11-2. That's what Marcus Freeman took over. He did not take over Indiana. He took over a team that was always on the precipice of, but just couldn't quite get over the hump. To be clear, I'd rather go spend the weekend on a yacht with Marcus Freeman. I'd rather go to the club with Marcus Freeman. I'd probably rather go hang out in the bar with Marcus Freeman than Curt Cignetti. But if I'm picking which one I want to be my head football coach, it's not even close. What Curt Cignetti has done for Indiana is unprecedented. And we normalize greatness so much that right now we're just forgetting how bad it was. And the fact that Indiana went undefeated and won a national championship, the fact that he propelled Indiana to that season, he got the quarterback that is now my favorite team's quarterback is there as the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, in large part because he was just around Curt Cignetti. Like that ability to jump, not for a coach that's 30, not for a coach that nobody saw coming, not for a coach that the world couldn't have known about. No, for a coach that's been around for a minute, that the world had the chance to pick, that every team could have hired year in and year out and didn't. I think that speaks to Curt Cignetti's greatness, which is why, by the way, Caroline, I'll just say, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, if it's Curt Cignetti or Marcus Freeman, it's Curt Cignetti. But if you're asking me Curt Cignetti or the field, I'm taking the fields. And I think it's because we've seen coaches catch lightning in a bottle before. I think that Curt Cignetti and Indiana are more than just lightning in a bottle. But I saw it at my own alma mater. Again, a place with far more resources and far more in-state talent than Indiana has, than my alma mater, LSU. I saw them catch lightning in a bottle and win a national championship and show us one of the greatest seasons in the history of the sport. That coach was fired a year and a half later. I think Curt Cignetti is a better football coach and is a better X's and O's guy than Ed Orgeron is. I will state that for the record. But we've seen Kirby Smart win back-to-back. Like, we've seen coaches win one and then get back again and then get back again and maintain themselves in the conversation. Curt Cignetti is in an uphill battle in the state of Indiana. Not only are you competing with other in-state schools like a Notre Dame, but you're also competing against the Ohio States and the Michigans of the world. And oh yeah, by the way, you're competing against the Texases and the Floridas and the Louisianas of the world where 5 stars grow on trees. So while I do think that Curt Cignetti is one of the best coaches in college football, while Curt Cignetti is one of the highest paid coaches in college football, and rightfully so, if you give me Curt Cignetti or Kirby Smart, I'm probably taking Kirby, because Kirby's been around and has stuck around in the conversation and has won back-to-back national championships. It's great that Curt Cignetti has won one, and it's great that Curt Cignetti has Indiana where they are, and it's fun when there's parity in the sport. In order for me to take you over some of these other guys, I need to see you do it again.
That's fair. I think the reason that I'm all in on Curt Cignetti, and frankly, the reason I'm in on Indiana becoming dynastic right now, is because right place, right time for all of it. Everything changed in college football, as you and I know, covered it so much, right? Like the way that the players are funded, the way that this alumni base decided to start spending money, all of these things came together for a coach that isn't a spring chicken, for a coach that isn't 45 years old and turning around talking. He's not 30 years old talking to college kids. He's old enough to be these kids' dads, and in some cases, almost their granddad, right? But he comes in with a massive amount of money and an engaged alumni base that is ready to spend that money, and he seems to have an eye for finding the right talent and getting that talent coached up incredibly quickly. I don't know that it's just Curt Cignetti, but if I look at Indiana football as Voltron, if I look at all of these different pieces together and say, okay, well, in the modern climate, do you have a great coach? Yes. Do you have a coach that can find transfer talent portal? Yes. Do you have a coach that has an understanding to the way modern college football teams are built? Yes. Do you have a program that's willing to fund whatever it takes to do it? Yes. Do you have a pipeline to the NFL now? Yes. When I stack all of those things together, Indiana, they become a pipeline now. And once you've had the number 1 overall pick and you've got wide receivers that are going to play,
a pipeline is maybe did they have a great team with a ton of talent that will be successful in the NFL? Yes. But all the things, all the boxes that Indiana's checking, and I don't disagree with it, but you know who else checks those boxes? Michigan. You know who else checks those boxes? Ohio State, Texas, USC, Notre Dame, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Am I missing anybody? So I can't say that Indiana has a pipeline to the NFL. I can say that Indiana has now at least examples to show you that we can get you to the NFL. But if we're talking about NFL pipelines, you're competing against some of the greatest NFL pipelines that exist in the sport.
I think they've created a new and very, this is like a modern pipeline. They've just gone out and built it. You're right. Every school you just mentioned has a generational pipeline. Of course they can get it to. I think Indiana's got a method that's really easy to see. You step back, they want players that have played a ton of college football, that have been around and seen a ton. This is the equivalent in the NFL of building only with free agency, which you're allowed to do in the modern college football landscape. So they're going out with guys. They're not having to coach guys up from high school. They're coaching guys up that have already played a ton of college football, many of which that are at grad level, so they don't have to take a ton of classes. They're putting them around a coaching staff that knows how to maximize their ability with a level of attention that gets them to the NFL. This all stacks together to what, starts as the number 1 overall pick, a couple of wide receivers, a defensive back, some guys that get drafted this year throughout the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round. But then you see it sustain. Again, as we talked about, they get one of the top recruits coming in, or one of the top transfers, I should say, coming in at the quarterback position that is going to be in this same. If Hoover comes out and has a Fernando-like year, he could end up getting drafted ahead of all of them. I think they've created a very current, modern system that is a straight pipeline to, hey, we're not going to develop a high school kid. We're going to get somebody that's 24 years old. We're going to teach them the little nuances they need that's going to get them to win us a bunch of football games, and it's going to put them in the NFL. That's an absolute pipeline to me. So while I agree with you that Michigan and Ohio State and Georgia, these are all schools that get kids drafted week in and year out. So does Indiana now in the modern system, the way that they built it.
You just said a key word that I think is the biggest difference between how I feel and how you feel about Indiana. Sustain. I want to see you sustain that, because sustaining success and staying at the top of college football has never been harder than it is right now. Nick Saban cracked the sustainability code that doesn't exist anymore. No longer are you recruiting 5 stars out of high school and allowing them to sit the bench for 3.5 years. They get 1 year, they pop off their 1st-round draft picks, and you just reload every single year. I agree with you that there is this modern formula to winning championships, and that is dominating the transfer portal and finding these 23, 24-year-olds that have 4 or 5 years of college football experience. But you have to replenish that every single year. And not every single year is the crop of talent in the transfer portal going to be as robust as maybe the year previous. Or not every year are you going to find a 24-year-old player with 5 years of college football experience that fits into your system or that buys into your locker room culture. There is a clear model that we have seen that works. We saw it from Ohio State. We saw it from Notre Dame the year that they got to the national championship. We saw it from Indiana. We saw it from Miami, who was in the national championship. We've seen it with Ole Miss. We have seen plenty of examples of success from that model. But sustainability is my question. Can you do it year over year over year over year and build that reliable pipeline, as reliable as we've seen from some other programs, some of the legacy programs in college football? It doesn't matter as much as it used to now that we're living in the NIL era, but we would be naive to think that it doesn't matter at all.
I don't disagree with you, but they went from 11-2 to 16-0 and a national champion. According to On3, the number 1 transfer portal class of the entire offseason belongs to Indiana. According to ESPN, the number 1 offseason in the Big Ten belongs to Indiana. They've kept their entire coaching staff intact. So I hear you that you want continuity, but all we have is what we have in front of us. They grew from year 1 to 2 under Cignetti, and they replaced the outgoing class with the top-ranked transfer portal class. That's as close to continuity, I think, as you can get in modern college football. Yeah, we have to see it on the field. But if you're asking, have they stacked all of the Legos together into a block that makes it look like they are back? Yeah, until they disappoint, I'm not going to presume they're going to disappoint just because other teams can't match the level of continuity. They've done everything to this point that I think they can do. So I agree with you.
Until they do it again, I can't crown them a dynasty. What they do on the field matters to me. Do they look like they're poised to get right back where they were this past season? Yeah, that's what it looks like. Ole Miss had the number 1 transfer portal class going into the 2024 season. They went 9-3 and missed out on the college football playoff. So I don't think that's what this is.
Ole Miss wasn't a defending national champion. Cignetti's,
But I don't think that matters. I'm saying you can be the number 1 ranked transfer portal class, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go 16-0 and win the national championship next year. You say until they disappoint. I say until they prove it. I'm not willing to call them a dynasty. I'm willing to call them some new kids on the block. I'm not willing to call them a dynasty.
I look at all of it and say proof of concept and benefit of the doubt has already been earned. To go 11-2 in that first year had all of us say, yeah, but we got to see it again. We're not going to really buy in on Indiana until we see it again. They go 16-0 with a quarterback coming into the season that most people hadn't even heard of, that was not that highly recruited by most people. Shout out to Nate Tice, who saw it coming in advance, but most people did not know Fernando Mendoza was going to be Fernando Mendoza. And now they've replaced all of those pieces with even higher touted pieces on top of the defending national champion. Plenty of time this summer to keep breaking down the college football landscape because it looks electric. But coming up, we will get an update on everything you need from YouTube golf sensation Nick Stubb, also known as Fat Perez, coming up next.
Are there any teams that come to mind, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Sacramento, or anybody else that you think has good incentive to try to move up in the draft?
If there was a team that I was looking at that had an asset, it's Milwaukee at 10 that might use Giannis to, for example, maybe try to get that fifth pick from the Clippers. That's the only team that I'm looking at right now that I say, okay, I think they've got the juice.
This is a team that is also doing it without some signature players in their rotation. Hunter Green, we have not seen him, but what Terry Francona and his staff are putting together right now, Sal Stewart is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Ellie De La Cruz is an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I think that the Cincinnati Reds are a team that has some staying power in what is a very interesting and potentially compelling National League Central.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Right across the street from where the Giants and the Jets play, we've got professional football indoor. The run-up in the left-footed kick is on the ground and picked up by an up man for the Rattlers. It's Ronnie Brown. Brown out across midfield and a great run down the boards to the end zone. Touchdown, Brown! What a start in the IFL Cup! Huge high hop, and he just absolutely had a nose for the end zone down the wall.
Life's pretty cool when Bob does sports out here, tweeting out and then suddenly getting quote tweeted by the king. Congrats, boys, with all the emojis. LeBron James, the king of not only tweeting, but tweeting with perfect emojis. And now we are happy to be joined by one of the people LeBron was congratulating in that. Fat Perez, FP, man, we appreciate your time. By the way, we should just call you Perez. Congratulations on the weight loss and your journey. I'm just saying we should just make it Perez. But FP, when LeBron's quote tweeting you guys, what's that mean for everybody that knows LeBron's status and all the work you guys are putting in and having that relationship with him?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, to know where we kind of started with things and kind of begging golf courses to come out, let us come out and film, to, having LeBron willing to come out with film with us. It's a wild ride. It's one of those checkpoint moments that we have where we can kind of know that we're going in the right direction. YouTube golf's in a good spot. Seeing him on the range was a surreal thing.
I mean, yeah, we see the clips right there. All of those went viral. The basketball world was loving it. The golf world was loving it. I think the sports world as a whole kind of fell in love with that right there. What did you learn about LeBron when you were out there on the golf course with him?
I learned he's just like the rest of us out on the golf course. He loves the game. He caught the bug somewhere along the line, and just like all of us, all he wants to do is play golf. He loves basketball, clearly one of the best of all time, maybe the best. But it's a golf junkie now. I think Bronny's probably a little ahead of him in his game, and I think that's probably messing with him a little bit. I think he can't wait to maybe even the playing field there. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about equipment. He's just like every other guy, kind of working all week to be able to play golf on the weekend.
But that's where it gets interesting, FP, because I have a guy's thread that I've known for years. And one of our topics of conversation over the weekend is, how can you be LeBron, one of the best athletes in the world? We all know that. Just an absolute dominant athlete that loves golf. We know that. And his swing still looks so bad. With all the resources he has, how would you, what kind of advice are you guys giving him on how to maybe fix that swing a little bit?
Oh, I don't know if I can give LeBron James any athletic advice, but no, I think he's, he's just getting started. He's been playing for 8 months. I think he's definitely, he's worked his whole career to have a body that, can play 80 plus games in the NBA and the type of game that he plays. And he's, I'm not sure that golf flexibility has really been a focus of his in the gym. So I think once he gets through his, his career and gets through basketball, whenever that is, he doesn't look like he anytime soon. He'll probably lean down a little bit, get some flexibility, and he'll find that golf swing. I have no doubt.
I mean, you mentioned how he's caught the bug. He loves golf, and we see that with the way that he tweets and talks about YouTube golf. He loves it. Do you think that could be maybe a sneaky determining factor of where he plays next season, of where can I get access to the best golf courses?
It's not the dumbest thing I've ever heard, to be honest with you. Like, I know if it was me, and when I'm looking at jobs and I'm looking at where I can play golf and the city that I'm in and that type of thing. So I mean, I would say that, LA is a great golf town. So if he stays put, he's in a good spot. But it may not be where he can play. It might be more of like flexibility on how often he's allowed or not allowed to play, but he doesn't get kind of side-eyed when he goes out and plays golf. So I don't know. It could be a factor.
It's amazing. And by the way, to be clear, I think it's awesome. He's found an outlet, right? Like, because the intensity of what he does all the time, like, what is it about golf that has become an outlet, not just for LeBron, but for so many competitive athletes? Because it's such a difficult sport. Feels to me it's counterintuitive to be like, hey, I need a release, so I'm going to go play this really frustrating game on the grass. But that's what athletes are doing. Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, these are guys that are used to challenges and love to kind of build and get to the top of the mountain. So it's probably a little bit humbling to kind of go backwards. I think golf is unique in a way as well that no matter your ability level, the handicap system allows anybody to play anybody at any time. So I think these are competitive guys, and it doesn't matter if their buddy or teammate is, a little ahead of them in the golf journey. They're able to, put strokes on the line and be able to go out and have a good game. So, and it's easy to bring golf clubs. It's best suited for the road and as a professional athlete. So, I wonder how, like, if you're not playing golf, what are you doing? That's kind of where I'm at. But I'm a junkie like that.
Is there one story in particular that comes to mind whenever anyone asks you, like, oh my gosh, you play golf with LeBron James? What was that like? What would be the one story that you would tell people, a fun little anecdote?
Oh, I mean, I think the wildest thing was just when he got there and when he kind of rolled up to the range and he kind of like, we have our production guys that are in the background. We talk to him a lot. So if you're really watching our show, you're going to know these guys' names. And LeBron rolls up and sees our guy Jensen, who we call J-Bone. He's like, "What's up, J-Bone?" And then he goes up to Joe and asks him about his son and knows his son by his name. So that was the craziest part, I think, was that, like, okay, like LeBron, not only is he down to film, like he is watching us and knows these little things, and he picked out very unique moments that we had in videos. So I think the craziest thing was just that, like that moment, like telling me like how great my weight loss is. I'm like, what in the world are we talking about? So I think just starting off as a genuine dude, knowing that he was watching, know that, he's a fan of what we do, it made the day so much easier. And he was just out there having a good time with the boys. It was a lot of fun.
Let's be honest, though. Nobody saw the YouTube golf craze coming, right? Like, it exploded sort of out of nowhere. You guys didn't set out to do this to be famous. It's just happened. So for you, what's that moment like where you look around and realize that the Brooks Koepkas and the LeBron James of the world are watching you play golf?
Yeah, it's a little bizarre. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, we, are just friends out on the golf course having fun, just like everybody else is. And we just happen to bring cameras in the mix. I mean, at least that's on our side, that's what our channel is. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different stuff in the YouTube golf space, which I think is awesome. We want people to stay on YouTube. We want the Brian Rose and Barstool Foreplay and those guys to have new videos as well. So yeah, it's wild. I think, the YouTube in general, on-demand entertainment has risen, and I think COVID had a negative effect on the world, but probably had a pretty positive effect on the game of golf. So I think those two things kind of just perfect storm at the same time, and we just happen to be guys making videos on YouTube, golf videos on YouTube at that time. So we definitely we definitely didn't see it coming. I think we were just having a good time with it and just got kind of right place, right time.
I mean, no doubt that has absolutely exploded. So for you, if you're thinking pie in the sky, dream guests or just perfect idea of what your ultimate show or program would be, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think we're having a great time doing exactly what we're doing. I don't think we've run out of guests by any means. Obviously, you know, Tiger Woods. That's the end all be all, or at least the guy that I watched growing up. So I know that's most guys in our space number one guest. But it's golf's kind of the great equalizer. So musicians, athletes, actors, everybody in their off time is trying to get on the golf course. So we when we go through every PGA Tour pro potentially as a guest, we can go to country music or rock and roll or actors, comedians. So for us, what's next is exactly what we're doing and trying to get the best videos out, the best guests we can. We're having a great time.
It's crazy to me because I spent 15 years of my life living on tour buses, touring in country music. People weren't playing golf that way. And now everybody I know, like every time I talk to the Jordan Davises of the world, like they're out on the Mitchell Tempest, they're all out on the golf course. Like there's been just a transformation in the way the game is played. So we had Joey Colcuts on the show. All right. And obviously that was a blast, always a blast. Who's the biggest sports fan on the Bob Doe Sports team? Like if I'm going to go to the bar and watch a sporting event with one guy, who's the one that's going to turn it up the most?
Yeah, I mean we're all pretty nuts when it comes to that. I think Joe might be the best time that you have watching the game. He's a passionate dude, and he'll let you know what he's rooting for. If you're talking about ball knowledge, our production, our head of production, the Jet, just knows crazy facts and spits them out. So. And Bob's the ultimate cheerleader, and he's going to let you know that everything's going well. So it's really what you're looking for. We're all kind of crazy in our own way, and just when we're off the golf course and we're on the road, we're in the living room watching whatever game's on that night. That's a fact.
I mean, you guys have both mentioned how the game of golf has absolutely exploded. People maybe previously didn't even think about golf. Now it's all they think about. So if there's somebody watching and listening right now thinking, "Oh, I want to catch this bug. I want to get into golf." What's the one event that you would say, okay, if you want to get into golf, you have to watch or attend this?
Yeah, I think the Masters is probably the obvious answer. It's so incredible in so many different ways, but I think anybody, especially somebody that's not yet into golf, you go out to the Waste Management in Scottsdale, and you're going to see, great golf. You're going to see fun. You're going to have a good time, and I think that's a good intro. I think to golf. Just at least that's what we're trying to do as well. It's not your grandfather's game and tucked in shirts and all that. There's an aspect of that, but golf doesn't need to be that way. I think you can go out and go to your local public course and bring some buddies and have a great time and enjoy it. Golf introduces you to the best people in the world, takes you to the most beautiful places. So I think it's a game for everybody. And the Waste Management would be a nice welcome to golf.
What's the next big event on your calendar?
Event? It's a good question. US Open is kind of on my radar, at least. I spend some summer time up here in Long Island in Montauk, and I'm excited for the US Open to come to Shinnecock next month. We had an opportunity to play it a few weeks ago during the media day. Just a great golf course, great vibe, great history. So I'm really excited to kind of get out there and see some of the guys that we know and see who's going to come out on top.
I mean, real question for you, FP. I mean, let's just get down to the nitty gritty here. I tried to play in a celebrity tournament years ago, and I took one swing off the tee. And the guys looked at me and said, "You're driving the cart." That was it. That's all I got. But I've been working on it. Like, I've been spending some time at Topgolf. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get this down. And Caroline and I come out, like, what do we get? Yahoo Sports Daily, maybe like comes from the course while you guys are filming. Like, maybe we get a little collab here. I'm just trying to get myself invited to hang out with you guys.
Hey, you're on the right track. You had Cold Cuts on, you had me on. Now you got to have Bob on, and at that point, you've got the trifecta. And I don't see any reason why not.
I think FP just told us that we're invited. If you come up to Travelers, that's our Connecticut party town. If you come up to Travelers, we'll meet at the drink tent. We'll get weird. That's the way that's the way great friendships start all the time. FP, we appreciate your time, and congratulations on all the success. It's fun to watch what you guys do. It's great for the game of golf. You're making a sport more attainable, which is an incredibly beautiful thing. We love hanging out with you. You got to come back and do it again. We appreciate your time.
100%. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate y'all.
That's great stuff from them. And you can follow them on Twitter, X, at FatPerez33 is the way you get there. Coming up next, we're going Owen. We're going to figure out what gets off.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the three, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much. And I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that. And I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time, when it's all said and done, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's that like for you as a weapon to see different coaches come in and figure out how to best utilize those weapons? What's that been like for you?
It's been great, just working for guys like that now under Matt. They're just guys that like you want to play for. You get to see like how all of these great minds think. It's allowing me to learn. It's like keeping me on my toes and allowing me to just develop as a football player mentally.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
NFL agent Sean Stellato, who played Division I football and basketball at Marist College and later played professional arena football, is trying out this weekend in Copenhagen for the Italian men's national flag football team, trying to make Italy's roster for the 2026 World Games in August. So he's trying to get out there. Absolutely incredible. This picture in and of itself reminds us, it requires us, I should say, to bust out Yahoo Sports Daily's favorite, Going Owen. This is where we take a topic, we give it to you, and if it blows our mind, you'll hear this.
Wow.
And if it doesn't impress us, we'll tell you why. Sometimes you'll hear Owen do wow. Again, let's hear Owen one more time.
Wow.
But then Caroline does it so perfectly. Go ahead, Caroline.
Wow.
It's a gift. All right, so are you going Owen with an
talent.
agent moonlighting as an Italian flag footballer?
Absolutely, I am going Owen on this. 1000%. Get you a man that can do both. Get you a man that can be hard-nosed at the negotiating table and get you a deal, get you an extension, get you a workout if you're a free agent, and then also puts his money where his mouth is and actually plays the game himself. I love this. Love that.
I'm in on all of this. I'm going to go Owen with it. It gets the Owen wow.
Wow.
But the reason for me is if you go back to the picture of him standing holding the football, more so than these, but if you go back to the one that we had where he's playing, holding the football, he could be played by Owen Wilson in the movie. So if he goes in and he has this incredible moment here, and he, like, let's say he just wins all these medals and accolades and becomes the single greatest flag footballer we've ever seen in the history of the world, and they eventually make a movie, Owen Wilson can play him. That makes it a wow for me. That means I'm going full wow on this one just because Owen could play him in a movie. We will keep the Owen storylines going, though, and we'll bring up a team that we haven't talked a lot about yet on this show, but a team that I have an entire basement full of swag from. Viva Las freaking Vegas. The Golden Knights have an incredible 3-0 series lead in the Western Conference Final. Why do I say it's incredible? Well, let me tell you why I say it's incredible. Number one, Colorado was the heavy favorite coming into this series, and I do mean heavy favorite. Colorado has been one of the best teams in the NHL for the entirety of the season, deservedly so. Not a lot of people were giving this Vegas Golden Knights club a chance. Also, let's remember that Vegas fired their coach with a week left in the regular season, and even I sat here and said, what in the hell are they doing? And then all of a sudden, not only do they go up 3 games to nothing, but you see it there. They were down 3-0 in this game, and they came back with 5 unanswered goals. Colorado had not lost all season with a 3-goal lead until, whammy bam, they're taking on the Golden Knights in the Western Conference Final, up 3-0. Game 4 hitting tonight. It's late. Puck doesn't drop until 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be on short sleep tomorrow, Caroline, because this gets a wow. This gets, I guess, in theory, 3 wows because they're up 3 games to nothing. I am feeling froggy. Woo, triple wow.
I am so happy for you, whatever. This does not get a wow from me because I do believe that everyone, whether you're a fan of hockey or basketball or football, all of the above, you have to suffer. That is just life as a sports fan. You have to be subject to suffering. Now, Fitzy, I know that you're a Raiders fan, so you've gotten sufficient suffering from your football fandom. But all the Vegas Golden Knight fans out there have only ever lived 1 year of their hockey fandom without going to the postseason. And that includes winning a Stanley Cup, going to another Stanley Cup finals, getting to the postseason, getting to the conference finals, and multiple seasons in its existence. Teams aren't this good, or at least aren't supposed to be this good in their infancy. So when going to a series that they were not supposed to win, now they have a 3-0 lead. Oh, you poor Vegas Golden Knights fans and all the adversity that you faced being the underdog in a postseason series. Boo freaking who. I don't want to hear it. You get no wow from me.
Yeah, by the way, a recent survey of the most hated team in hockey, overwhelming answer from hockey fans everywhere, Vegas. Your sentiment is the popular sentiment. If they are able to clinch and win this series, they're up 3 games to nothing. It will be their 3rd Stanley Cup final appearance in just 9 years as a franchise. You're absolutely right. They have been fearless throughout the course of their history about firing, trading, and signing whatever. They do whatever they have to win right now. And hockey is a slow and low sport for most teams. You and I both covered the Predators at different points in our career. We're used to farm systems and you're trying to get the minor leagues into the main. We're used to all of this whole arduous, painstaking process. Vegas skipped it all. True Ozempic of a team. Yeah. Boom, get an injection and go right to the promised land.
They're Ozempic. They just pressed fast forward. And there's nothing wrong with Ozempic. No, I have no problem with somebody that wants to use Ozempic. But I do have a problem with Vegas and all the success that they've had. I've been a hockey fan my entire life. I have seen my team win 1 Stanley Cup, and I am lucky. I consider myself lucky for seeing 1 Stanley Cup from my hometown team in my entire lifetime. Vegas Golden Knights fans that were 4 years old, have seen Stanley Cup championships. Like, they have seen so much success. They don't even know what it's like to suck in hockey. They don't even know what it's like to talk about some KHL prospects that could be coming up over the next 5 years. It's not fair, and I'm jealous. It's all jealousy.
You are
just for the record.
The last time I flew myself out for 2 Stanley Cup final games and the parade. So Southwest, get ready. I'm going to be booking all them flights. Woo! I mean, my basement already has so much.
And your football team sucks. Don't forget about that.
Yep.
Just bring it back down to earth.
She's right. She is right about that. From my hometown to yours, Caroline. You go at Owen, St. Louis Cardinals manager, buying tickets for shirtless Cards fans to continue good vibe. Are we in on tarps off at Busch Stadium?
I'm so in on tarps off at Busch Stadium. This is definitely getting an Owen. Yes, thank you very much. That is 100% a wow. Now look, Cardinals are a little bit of a skid. They've lost 4 of their last 5, but they're still in second place in a really competitive division. And everyone in the NL Central is above 500, which is not something that a lot of teams in the AL can say, or a lot of divisions in the AL can say. I have been the most spoiled after I just, rag on Fitz's team for being spoiled every single year. I have been a very spoiled baseball fan. The first years that I remember of being a sports fan were St. Louis in, winning the divisions and winning pennants and getting to the World Series and winning World Series. I have seen more baseball success than not in my lifetime. So the last couple of years have kind of been a rarefied air of Cardinals not making the postseason. That was never even a question, and a large part of me growing up in St. Louis. So after a couple of years of just dreadful baseball, I said, I just want this year to be fun. And I want this year to be interesting. I don't need, nor do I expect the Cardinals to win the World Series this year, to get to the World Series or go on a run in the postseason. Would I love it? Of course I would. Of course I would. I just wanted this year to be fun and interesting and just exciting a little bit, because the last couple of years haven't been fun or exciting. This is fun and exciting, and everyone's buying into it, and the club is buying into it. Ollie Marmol is buying into it. The players are buying into it. It's this infectious joy that's spreading across St. Louis, not just because the team is a lot better than anticipated, although that is a big part of it, but because of this. Because the Cardinals fans are the best fans in baseball. I'm biased, but they are. And that is an example of why. So yes, going Owen big time on this one.
I love that. And I love every ounce of it. I also love that the team is taking the time. So often in sports, we forget that the fans matter. And for the organization and the manager and everybody to take a moment to acknowledge exceptional fans is exceptional. Let's get one more in real quick. And we're going to go wow. We're going to go Owen in a different way, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I'm going Owen on the enhanced games, but it's not the wow of like, wow, that's great. It's the wow, this is an embarrassment. The enhanced games over the weekend, all eyeballs on what the result would look like. If you are going to allow juicing and you're going to say all rules are off, you better set some records. There was one record set, as you can see here, one athlete that broke a world record and as a result got a $1 million bonus. But there were also 2 different athletes that chose not to juice that won their respective events. So whatever we expected from the enhancing, what will it look like when you can do whatever you want? The answer was, it didn't look all that great.
I didn't even realize that 2 that didn't decide to juice actually won their events. Also, if you're not juicing, why are you in the enhanced games? I guess to win. I guess to prove a point. And they did. Credit to them. I hate this. I hate everything about this. I hate what it represents. I hate, people that were dying to watch this. I hate the warped idea that this gives for professional sports. This just feels like everything is like that's wrong and icky about sports. Is, hey, we are openly going to be taking performance enhancing drugs and we're going to be competing for your entertainment. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't like anything about that. I hate it. I hate it, but I love that for his bank account. Enjoy your $1 million.
I feel like this was a modern experiment and it failed, and that's okay. Like sometimes you take chances, and to me, they took a chance, and this chance just didn't work. Again, the results, if you're going to allow people to inject whatever you want in their bodies, the results are going to have to be superhuman for people to pay attention. The fact that world records weren't shattered all over the place, the fact that, again, 2 athletes won their respective events that chose to participate just to show that you can not juice and still win, I think was a bit of a slap in the face to the entire process. They're trying to market for it. Overall, it was not what anyone expected. All right, coming up next, plenty to get to, not just across Major League Baseball, but in the College World Series. We got tons to get to, including a possible trade. Could Skubal be traded soon? We'll figure out next with Jordan Schusterman.
And the Jets with Darren Mucci as GM feel like they are figuring it out. Now, can Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, stay out of the way and let this thing progress? Is Aaron Glenn actually have the goods as head coach? I don't know that, but I think Geno Smith was a really sound signing, and I really do think, dodging lightning bolts here, the Jets could surprise people this year and be a lot better than the team you've been watching the last 15 years during this historic playoff drought.
How did you feel about his 2025? Do you think the hype is justified? Is he your number one guy right now?
I would feel comfortable putting him as QB1 right now. What I saw from Arch down the stretch, I just think that a lot of people stopped watching Arch in October and was like, this guy's not good. And they moved on.
They did.
And then we got to Florida. And then we got Tennessee. And we moved on and on and on. And he stacked games and he stacked games and he stacked games. I was texting a Southwest scout and I was like, fill in the blank. Arch Manning has the best pocket movement skills since, and he said Joe Burrow.
Should AJ Bonsa be a lock for the number one pick going to the Washington Wizards? What do you think, Chad?
He's been my favorite player to watch really all year. I love what AJ brings to the table and the upside. I think he's got the combination of a can't miss scorer who could just ultimately be, one of the elite top 5 players in the NBA. And I just don't think the Wizards take the risk. To me, he's the clear number one guy.
Second down and 7, 5 to play. DeLorean launches, far boards, got a man deep in the end zone, caught, touchdown! The Orlando Pirates take a big shot and cash in.
It was only a matter of time before he had the one-on-one situation, and he got a chance to show off that blazing speed.
Nyquan Murray continues a massive night.
The Detroit Tigers' atrocious spiral continues. Sorry to our good friend Charles Robinson, who always does his shows wearing a Tigers hat. They've lost 7 in a row, 15 of the last 17, third worst record in Major League Baseball, and their season high 10.5 games behind the Guardians in the AL Central. That is less than ideal. So for more things on all things from the Diamond, we bring on one half of the Baseball Barbercast, Jordan Schusterman. Jordan, Detroit got off the schneid yesterday, a little bit of positivity, but are we starting to think that Skubal is going to be traded soon?
Definitely not soon. Soon, I mean soon relatively as in like maybe this calendar year, because that's the only time he could get traded. But this is heading towards a very difficult decision for the Detroit Tigers. I think even in the offseason, as we discussed his contract and he had this record arbitration hearing, and it was like, wow, are the Tigers really going to consider trading him? But at the time, it just didn't make any sense because the Tigers were expecting to contend. The Tigers were a team that viewed that even if this was going to be Skubal's last year in Detroit, if they didn't think they could extend him long-term or sign him as a free agent, that this was still an opportunity with the best pitcher in baseball to go and try and win a World Series. And as we've seen over these first few months, the Tigers are not in any way trending towards that. And sure, losing Skubal to injury, at least for a little bit, hurts that cause. But even if he was healthy, and even when he was healthy, they weren't exactly playing great ball. And now they find themselves in a pretty shocking hole that they're going to have to dig themselves out of soon, even if he does come back in the next few weeks, which is far faster than any of us expected.
Let's stick with pitchers for the moment, because yesterday Brewers ace Jacob Mizorowski, the Miz, hit 100 miles an hour 57 times, which breaks my brain, Jordan. Does he have the potential to be the modern day Nolan Ryan?
Yeah, I think that the comparison, I guess, with Nolan Ryan is that Nolan Ryan was throwing harder than everybody else at the time and was striking out more batters than everyone else at the time. I think in this respect, what makes the Miz so amazing is that this is the era of velocity. Everyone is throwing really hard, and yet he is still throwing harder on average, consistently holding that velocity deep into games as a starting pitcher than really anything we've ever seen. I think the other interesting part about comparing it to Nolan Ryan, some of the parallels that I do like there is they were also just really hard to hit. Right. I mean, the average hits per inning, I mean, just the batting average allowed that Nolan Ryan had was always lower than anybody else. And that's where Mizorowski, I mean, batters are hitting 152 against him this season. But I think the last point I would make, and what Nolan Ryan was also known for, and what Mizorowski was known for most of his career until this year, was walking people. With this ridiculous stuff, he was not throwing a lot of strikes. He was walking 10 to 15% of the batters. this year, and certainly over the last month, he's in the zone. His walk rate's down to 7%, something that Nolan Ryan, I don't think ever sniffed really at any point during his peak when he was, walking over 10, 15% of hitters. Now, when you're striking out that many, you can afford it. But that seems to be this kind of uptick in command for Mizorowski is what has unlocked him to be a legitimate Cy Young candidate.
All right, so let's talk about some legitimate teams here. And as you may remember, I'm a lifelong diehard 2-year bandwagon Dodgers fan. So I'm used to championships. That's all I know. All I know in my lifelong diehard Dodgers fandom are titles and spending lots of money. But I've got this side eye going over here, right? Because being from Vegas, I root for every team that ever plays in the city of Las Vegas. So I've been dreading the day that I have to suddenly turn around and wear A's gear. Now, all of a sudden this year, I got the A's, the Rays, and the Guardians. 3 teams at the bottom of the payroll department, all turning around, leading their divisions. What do we make of non-spending teams finding themselves, boom, right up top?
Well, and it's not just that, right? It's the opposite. It's the New York Mets with a $350 million payroll in last place. It's the Boston Red Sox who've spent a lot of money. It's teams like the Orioles who have started to spend more. Toronto's started to spend more, and they've been really struggling. Now, obviously, the Dodgers are doing just fine, but let's bring Milwaukee into this too, right? In the National League, how much successful they've been. That said, the Brewers have been more kind of bottom of the middle class, I would say. I know that people talk about how their specific market is really small, but let's talk about these 3 AL teams, right? I mean, the Rays and the Guardians have been doing this for a long time. We cannot be surprised. These have been 2 of the most successful organizations in the last 10 to 15 years in the American League. The A's, we should remember that they were also doing it before they went into this foul period and they were barreling towards this relocation that kind of sucked the life out of the whole organization and the franchise, and the still things that I think are worth criticizing in a lot of respects. But they were succeeding with microscopic payrolls even before that sort of era, and now they're kind of back at the top of an American League West that is just really can't get out of its own way. So are the A's, should they be taken seriously? I think to a degree. They do have some interesting young talent. The Rays and the Guardians are still, I think, the model franchises to recognize you can win in baseball with smart people, with smart development, with smart roster building, with smart coaching. Now, can you win it all? We have not seen that yet from either of these 2 teams anytime recently. And once you get to the postseason, it becomes a very different conversation. But that shouldn't take anything away from the consistent regular season success that both Tampa Bay and Cleveland have shown year after year. It's really impressive.
Jordan, you and the whole Barbacast team do such a great job of breaking down Major League Baseball, but you've also been doing a great job of covering college baseball as well. We got the NCAA baseball tournament bracket yesterday. UCLA, to no surprise, is the #1 overall seed. Georgia Tech at 2. There's been a curse lingering over college baseball that getting the #1 overall seed is almost like a bad omen. But how confident are you that our eventual College World Series champion will be either UCLA or Georgia Tech?
Oh, it's such a good question because, I saw Georgia Tech in person a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, how is anybody going to stop this team? I've seen both. Realizing I've seen both of these teams in person this year. I saw UCLA at Ohio State earlier this year, a classic Big Ten matchup. I know you guys, knowing the history of college athletics, I mean, UCLA, Ohio State have really been going at it for decades. But lucky me, I got to see, yeah, exactly. So lucky me, I got to see Rock Chalowski in person, and it's so impressive what UCLA has been able to do, considering the hype that they carried coming into the season, to not lose a series the entire year, the only team in college baseball to be able to say that. And yet I'm more impressed with Georgia Tech because, frankly, the ACC is a lot better than the Big Ten. That's just a fact. And for them to dominate the way that they did during the regular season and through the conference tournament, and have all these draft picks and have their pitching step up in a way it really hasn't in recent years, have this incredible lineup. I'm so impressed with them. Their head coach, James Ramsey. Both of these teams are incredibly impressive for different but also some similar reasons. So I'm excited to see what they can do because it's been a lot of SEC in Omaha the last half decade or so. And so it'd be really cool to see if one of these teams can really bring the championship home.
I mean, you mentioned a lot of SEC. The SEC's won 6 straight natties. So if there's one team from the SEC that you'd have to bank on to make it 7, who is it?
Yeah, so Georgia's been the most consistent. Georgia is like kind of the antithesis of what Georgia Tech and UCLA have built with a lot of recruits, a lot of guys that have been there for 3 years. Georgia is just transfer city. I mean, they have brought in a super team of transfers, and yes, there's some guys that have been there as recruits, but Wes Johnson, they're just ruthless in his roster building. A lot of older players, and they've been so consistent. That said, I really like what Auburn has going on. That's a little bit more of a mix. Yeah, they've got some transfers, but they've got some freshmen that have really developed there. I like the pitching staff that they have in place. I think their head coach, Butch Thompson, is awesome. So I'm really impressed with Auburn. They don't have as much like overwhelming star power the way that a Georgia does, the way that even a Texas does, or certainly UCLA or Georgia Tech. But as far as just really damn good baseball teams, I think Auburn's floor is about as high as any of these teams. And I like their chances here. But I mean, listen, Alabama, Texas, all these teams are Texas A&M. I mean, the SEC is still going to have some representation in Omaha, and it would not be surprising if they win it all again.
And even more terrifying, if you just want to add salt into the wound of how competitive the SEC is, all of those teams from the SEC that you just mentioned, none of them are 6 of the last national champions. So it is just so the last 6 national champions plus Georgia and Auburn and Texas A&M and Tennessee, who did win a national championship, but all of these, I mean, like dominant programs.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that because, hello, we don't even have LSU and Vanderbilt in the tournament. I mean, LSU won it all last year. Vanderbilt breaking their 19-year regional streak. Vanderbilt, who was the number 1 overall seed last year. I mean, these are storied programs, and yet now the SEC, this kind of shows as to how incredibly difficult the SEC is to compete in, because even teams like LSU and Vanderbilt are kind of getting their butt whooped every so often. So, man, it's been a crazy year in college baseball. I'm excited to see how this tournament plays out.
I mean, speaking of teams that we don't have Oklahoma in the Women's College World Series. How significant is that?
I mean, that is infinitely crazier than LSU. That's actually a good question. Is Oklahoma not being in the World Series crazier than LSU and Vanderbilt not making the tournament? That's an interesting debate that we could have another day. But as for what this means for softball, I mean, it's just shocking. I mean, this team has been as dominant at to my understanding, any Division I sport that we've seen anytime recently. I mean, you're not supposed to be able to have dynasties like this in modern college athletics, and that's what Patty Gasso has built. And I mean, a lot of that talent is still in place, but I think that four-peat that they had a few years ago was clearly the product of just an unbelievable couple of recruiting classes. And now, listen, they still have some of the best players in the country, but it feels like the cohesion and just like the culture of we will not be stopped has started to fall back a little bit over the last couple of years, and clearly made them vulnerable to one of the great upsets in college softball history that Mississippi State pulled off last weekend. And so excited to see what they can do in their first trip to Oklahoma City.
I'm always excited to see what Najee Kennedy can do, the first ever $1 million woman in college softball. Would you say she is the biggest star in this tournament? And how confident would you be in Texas Tech and Najee Kennedy eventually hoisting a national championship trophy?
Yeah, it's hard because it kind of felt like last year was really their best chance because of how close they came in the championship series. And as amazing as Kennedy is, and this has nothing to do with her. This is, I mean, even without Oklahoma and without Florida, who also has been in the World Series a million times in the last 20 years, there's a lot of star power. I mean, you got Jordy Ball from in Nebraska. You've got Carlin Pickens throwing harder than any softball pitcher we've ever seen at Tennessee. UCLA has hit 200 home runs this season. That is not like a joke. They've actually hit 200 home runs. Megan Grant, of course, setting a new record there. Jordan Woolery has been amazing. Alabama, the number 1 overall seed, has a lot of talent. So, I mean, Texas, of course, the defending champions, has some. But Kennedy, what she represents for this era of college softball, as you mentioned, having that $1 million NIL deal, completely transforming this program with their head coach, Jerry Glasgow, who's just terrific. It's a very modern college athletic story. So I know some people aren't going to. I was just talking about it with Georgia earlier. But I think with Texas Tech, it's, we've gotten used to it. And it's amazing the kind of difference in a sport like softball that one player can really make. And there's other talent on this team for sure, so credit to them. But Kennedy's really special, and it would be really cool to see if she can to can get it done. Because I will say, I think the path to a championship this year is much more daunting than it was a year ago, which sounds a little crazy, but that's what I'm looking at with this bracket.
The internet was exploding though over the weekend. Texas Tech to get there beat Florida, and it was a beat down of Florida, and it got contentious enough that Florida chose not to come out and participate in the handshake. I think a lot of people would have freaked out about that in many sports. What was your reaction to the way that the game ended?
Yeah, I've tried to listen to people who have been in the softball space a lot longer to understand how rare this was, or how significant, or how problematic this was. And I've heard all ranges of takes of being like, this is despicable, but this is also understandable. This is, the NCAA, these are expectations in college athletics. And yet I can also understand people being like, is this really something that's necessary? They got run ruled on their own field, and that's pretty embarrassing. And also, when you win a super regional, they're going to celebrate for a long time. And it's like, how long are you supposed to sit there and watch them celebrate before you go wait and shake their hand? So I've heard a lot of different perspectives on this. I think it did add some spice to it. And at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't a great look, I guess, for Florida for sure. But it also sounds like there was a lot else involved with, of course, the coach getting ejected and interactions between the parents. And that's where it just gets messy and is kind of hard for me to comment on it too directly. But it is part of the story. And for better or for worse, it's getting attention to college softball. So I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing.
The Women's College World Series. Heck, it gets underway quickly before we get you out of here, Jordan. Women's College World Series gets underway on Thursday. Arkansas and Nebraska in the first round in OKC. Why is Arkansas a team we should keep our eye on?
Yeah, I mean, this is with their head coach, Courtney Deifel, who's been there a little over a decade. I mean, this is just a classic story of coming so close. I mean, they were in the Super Regionals, I think, 4 out of the last 7 years. And to get so close and to finally break through and get to Oklahoma City after clearly building a program that was worthy of getting there, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, to finally get through and to see what they're able to do with this opportunity is so cool. And I think that just, the softball is pretty amazing when you see some of these programs. I think about programs like Duke and Clemson. I mean, these huge, brand schools, whether it's in the power conferences, that didn't necessarily have rich softball history, and the right coach and the right players and the right infrastructure comes in, and it's just like, okay, here we go. We're here now. We're a national contender. And Arkansas really built that the right way over the last 10 years. And to see them get rewarded with a champion, a chance to win a championship is really cool. But they are on what their side of the bracket is not particularly forgiving. So we'll have to see how it shakes out with them, with Alabama, UCLA, and then Nebraska, their first matchup.
You guys can check out the Baseball Barbercast. It's an incredible show. It's also great that they're teammates with us at Yahoo Sports because you make everybody smarter. You guys cover the game so well. Follow him on Twitter, X at J_Schusterman_. Jordan, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks for all the insight. Enjoy all of the baseball, my friend.
Always fun. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Great stuff from Jordan, as always. Coming up next, not great stuff for Cleveland. What is next for the Cavs in this offseason? We'll break it down next. Yahoo Sports Daily hanging out with you.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico. Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much. And I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that. And I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time, when it's all said and done, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's that like for you as a weapon to see different coaches come in and figure out how to best utilize those weapons? What's that been like for you?
It's been great. Just working for guys like that now under Matt. They're just guys that, you want to play for. You get to see, how all of these great minds think. It's allowing me to learn. It's, keeping me on my toes and allowing me to just develop as a football player mentally.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
I love it here. I don't know any other way to say it. That from Donovan Mitchell on his future in Cleveland, and this is what happens after you lose the way the Cavs just lost to the Knicks. It's not that they lost in 4. It's that they lost in 4 mostly uncompetitive games that now have the entire city and franchise trying to figure out what's next, Caroline, because certainly if you're looking around and you're Cleveland, it's hard to take what just happened and feel good about the future of the Cavs.
It's not just losing in 4, like you said. It's losing game 1 when you had a 20-plus point lead in the fourth quarter. It's letting Josh Hart, the Knicks' 5th scoring option, go crazy on you. It's Kenny Atkinson saying, well, analytically, we've won 2 out of 3. It's Kenny Atkinson saying, well, if we would have won game 6 against Detroit, we probably would have beaten the Knicks. It's all of those things. It's not just the result. It's how it looked. It was the narrative coming out of that locker room. Like, let me just stick on what Kenny Atkinson said about analytically we won 2 out of 3. Who cares? Who freaking cares? That's made up. That's fairy tale land. Nobody cares if you win on a calculator. All anyone ever cares about is, did you win on the basketball court? Because we can talk about analytics all day long. We can talk about how great Cleveland was on rainy Thursdays. We can talk about Cleveland's, get out a protractor and break down the angle of shots and how that was so much better than anybody else in the NBA. Whatever other made up analytic you want to look at. There is one analytic that matters, and that is the final score. And you got your butts whooped 4 times in the Eastern Conference Finals. So just, it feels like excuse making. It feels like you're trying to, put lipstick on a pretty gross pig. If I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, what I want to hear out of my head coach is that we weren't good enough. This is unacceptable. We have to be better. Not, well, if you really look at it, we were the better team. No, you weren't. You just got swept. So it's all of these things, all of these, reasons for bad taste in the mouth of Cavs fans that I think are all fair and all justified. But Fitz, I think the frustrating thing for Cavs fans is, what are you going to do? You're going to fire Kenny Atkinson? I wouldn't be opposed to that. But can you justify firing your head coach after he got you to the Eastern Conference Finals? And James Harden and Donovan Mitchell are both publicly backing him? What are you going to do? Trade James Harden after you already promised him a deal? What are you going to do? Trade Donovan Mitchell after he was the lone bright spot in this series? I don't know where the Cavaliers go from here. I know what I would do, and that would be fire Kenny Atkinson and move on from James Harden. But I don't think that that's what the Cavs are going to do. I don't think that's what the Cavs can do. And that's a really uncomfortable and depressing position for this organization to be in.
I cover so much of what we do in this business with just a ton of logic. So to me, if I take all emotion out of the equation and I just look at the logic of what we're getting from Cleveland, you have Atkinson, as you've mentioned, saying, hey, analytically, we won 2 of these games before we went into the last game. You have the quote last night from James Harden. This is his quote. Genuinely, I do feel like we are the better team. And if that quote doesn't tell you something, maybe this one does. This is also a quote. Asked to assess his playoff run, he said, quote, I think I did pretty good. Defensively, been extremely solid. Offensively, getting guys shots and fitting into a system that was already in place. Now I'm going to stack that with what we heard from Harden when he made it clear earlier in these playoffs that these guys are still learning how to play together. And you stack that with the fact that Donovan Mitchell went as far as to say, we ride with Kenny. I think that what you've got out of all of this is a very clear indication from Donovan Mitchell and James Harden that they feel like the right thing to do is to run it back with Kenny Atkinson. They're a good team. They just need to gel. They need to figure out how to play together. That's what the logic tells me the stars are saying. And the stars are committed in this situation. Because to your point, Caroline, it's been reported, we've talked about it on this show, Brian Windhorst has made it clear that a promise was made to James Harden that he was getting a long-term deal from the Cavaliers. I do not believe anything has happened that will change that promise. So if I'm looking at a whole checklist here, very easy thing to check off. James Harden is going to be a long-term Cleveland Cavalier. Stick a fork in it, that's done. That is happening. So now that you know that is happening, you ask yourself, how do you best win around Harden? Well, getting rid of Donovan Mitchell isn't going to help that. That's part of why he's there. So Donovan Mitchell is going to be back. So now I know in my heart that Mitchell and Harden are coming back. This all makes sense to me logically. When you stack all of that together with the fact that both are supporting where this team is headed, both are telling you they need time to adjust, both are also telling you they need time to implement a system that accentuates what they do well together, and they're telling you they ride with Kenny Atkinson, that gives you the answer to the question. It may not be the answer that Cleveland fans want, but I think the answer is very clear. I don't think change is coming for Cleveland. I believe Atkinson's going to be back. I believe Spider's going to be back. I believe Harden's going to be back. And I believe organizationally, they think that the best shot to win is to find a way to make the most out of the pieces they have, not to bring in new pieces. I think what they're telling us is pretty clear right now, Caroline.
I think it is. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. Because I don't think that any team in the NBA is one James Harden away from winning an NBA Finals. Because I saw 6 times James Harden turn the ball over more than he made a shot. He's a liability in the postseason. Inexplicably so. Because I think it's fair to say James Harden is, a top 30 player all time in the history of the NBA? Can't play in the postseason. So if you view the ceiling as, let's just say, Eastern Conference Finals, and you're trying to break through that ceiling, James Harden has shown you over the course of a 17-year career, he's not that guy. Kenny Atkinson allowed his team to blow a 22-point lead in the fourth quarter of Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals on the road. That is enough reason for me to say, okay, he's not the guy. Because it's great that he can get you to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if your goal is championship, and I don't think you trade for James Harden and make those moves at the trade deadline, if your goal is not and your ceiling is not championship, if they don't make second half adjustments, they didn't make game-to-game adjustments, even things that felt so obvious to you and to me, Fitzy, to Cavs fans everywhere. It wasn't obvious, or at least it wasn't obvious to Kenny Atkinson, or at least if it was obvious, he wasn't doing it. So I think, to me, it feels clear how the Cavs should move forward. And maybe you might say, well, that's ridiculous. You're not going to fire a guy after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks did. And look where the Knicks are. So I think that that's very frustrating for Cavs fans moving forward to see clearly that this team has deficiencies and it doesn't seem like they're going to do anything about it.
There's a gambling term, a poker term called pot committed. And for anyone that doesn't gamble much, it means you just put enough in the pot that now the odds say you just got to play the hand out. I think the day that the Cleveland Cavaliers traded for James Harden, they became pot committed to this organization as it's currently constructed. Bringing in a new coach that needs new pieces is a rebuild. And I don't think that they're interested in a rebuild. So to me, the mistake they made was the day they acquired James Harden, which I was loud about on this show at the time. I will remain loud about it. That was their mistake. And now that they've made it, they can't walk it back. I think Cleveland's just screwed. We're back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks so much for watching. Come back. Check us out again tomorrow.